After trying Aeromexico's regional business class, I'm stepping it up. Their slightly grander Boeing 787 on the long-haul routes to the home of Hollywood, Los Angeles. Today we're checking out the bigger seats, upgraded meals, hopefully, and overall long-haul experience, and finding out if it's really worth paying extra for that little taste of luxury.
Is this a product worthy of Hollywood, or is it just business class wrapped up in your standard burrito? So when I do these early morning flights, I have to remind myself, no one did this to me, I picked a flight at 7 AM.
After muttering the words, everything will be okay twice, because apparently saying it once isn't enough, I pack up my luggage and mosey over to the check-in desk to return my key and offer my best wishes to the staff for allowing me to stay. The breakfast area is eerily empty, a stark reminder that most sane human beings are still snoozing away while I'm awake and functioning. Yeah. Thankfully, I've opted for the airport hotel, a mere 5-minute stroll from the check-in desk. Funny thing, the check-in area looks way fancier and more modern than I remember 10 years ago. And it's a funny story, well at least it is now, because 10 years ago I wasn't laughing. But I'd managed to book the wrong return date, and let's just say my boss was less than thrilled with that little adventure. If you're catching an international flight, then you're over on the left hand side, with the right a special zone dedicated to USA and Canada. Despite the place being practically empty, the check-in process somehow crawls along, taking over 10 minutes even though I'm second in line and 4 desks are wide open, go figure. Finally, with my bag officially on its way to the belly of the plane, I wander through the airport, which looks shinier and more modern than ever, on a quest to locate a lounge. Plot twist, this little luxury wasn't mentioned when I booked the ticket, and as luck would have it, the lounge is currently out of service. Well, I guess I'll just have to survive on caffeine and people watching instead.
So this should be interesting. Aeromexico is basically under like a huge renovation here at Mexico International Airport, and there's no lounges because they're both being refurbished. But apparently there is a replacement, so what that is I don't know, but we're going to find out.
The only issue here is my tiredness and the check-in being so slow, I forgot to ask about the lounge, and the only one I can appear to find is a third party. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't say yes to Aeromexico given they probably already have a lot of business and they would be absolutely overwhelmed, so on we go. The mock-up for the new lounge looks incredible, and I'm definitely planning to check it out in the not so distant future. For many years I was fiercely loyal to Oneworld Airlines, but here's the twist. The only Oneworld carrier serving my local airport is Qatar, and they can be a bit expensive. However, Air France, KLM and SAS, I'm basically spoiled for choice with SkyTeam. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but if you ever lived in Birmingham, you'll understand the struggle of trying to get to London just to catch a flight. Back to today's adventure, I'm finally stumbling across what seems to be Aeromexico's regional lounge. Lucky me because I found it early. I managed to get in, and even though the seats are limited, it's just not as jaw-droppingly gorgeous as the new lounge mock-up, but that's fine, it'll do nicely. That is except for the person across from me who isn't glued to her phone like the rest of us mortals, and is instead awkwardly staring into space while I eat. I can't quite work out if this is a tactic on her part to get me to move, or whether she's just so dead inside because it's very early in the morning. I'm not feeling that good myself, to be honest. Anyway, needing to improve my step count, it's only 1,000 so far, I'm taking leave and going off on an adventure around the rest of the airport. Besides, when I do leave, I take note that there's quite a queue of people waiting to get in, on a 1 out, 1 in system.
Is 3,000 steps enough? Yeah, it'll do. Anyway, with not much else to do, it's time to have a look at the journey map and then board today's flight.
Aeromexico flight 646 departs Mexico City at 7:35, soaring 1,548 miles through the sky to Los Angeles in about 4 hours and 15 minutes. Enough time to fully review the flight and get an all-important nap, because I have a date with a delicious hamburger that happens to be next door to the runway. before flying Air American Airlines Boeing 777-300 in premium economy, all the way back to London, a flight review that's well worth watching, because it surprises in many ways. Our flight is departing from gate 69, which for reasons only airport architects understand is basically glued to gate 70. This of course creates a little fun and games of whose flight is this, as passengers try to figure out which announcement belongs to which gate. Eventually our flight gets priority and are allowed to board with group 1. We then head down one level only to be stopped and held outside the jet bridge while the cabin crew finishes prepping the cabin. On the right side this gives us a time to peer through those tiny circular windows and try and catch a glimpse of the Boeing 787 taking us over to LAX. Kind of like plane spotting but with worse angles. And just in case you're not sure what a Boeing 787 looks like, here's a few I caught taxiing to get yesterday, all the way from sunny Cancun. Aeromexico has 21 of the Boeing 787s in their fleet, which are just over 8 years old, and I'm also really pleased to say that today's flight is laid out in a 1-2-1 configuration, a big upgrade from the 2-2-2 denser configuration I remember from 10 plus years ago. It's always the dream to be able to turn left when you board a plane, into the magical world where the space between the first and second doors is filled with just 8 rows of pure luxury. But you could also turn right, where there's another 6 seats tucked away in a much cozier little mini cabin.
So buenos dias and welcome aboard Aeromexico's Boeing 787. This is the Collins Aerospace Super Diamond product. They've gone with the same company as their Boeing 737s. It's 20.5 inches in the width and it's a full flat seat.
The Super Diamond seat is a real people pleaser, both for the airline and for us passengers. It makes great use of the onboard space, even if the footwell is a little bit of a don't stretch too enthusiastically kind of way, but the shoulder width is where it really shines. Every seat faces the same direction too, so there's none of that awkward staggered layout, where you accidentally lock eyes with a stranger next to you, or in front. Everyone gets the same level of privacy and a nice window view. Unless you're in the middle of course, but even then, if you're not a fan of your seatmate, good news, they're basically miles away. Even after perfecting the seat itself, the designers clearly asked the important question, okay, where's the passenger gonna stuff all their things? I've been on flights where the only storage option was a tiny gap between the seat and the wall. But not here, this seat has a cubby hole for days, including one on the left that cleverly doubles as an armrest. And finally, a place to put things and rest your elbow, without feeling like you're playing airline Tetris. There's even enough space on board for the therapy dog. I'm kidding, technically it's a support animal for the passenger on my left. But honestly, it's just putting me in the great mood. It's a shame it's too far away to pet, but even at a distance, it's doing me more for my mental health than half the in-flight entertainment options.
Any amenities, at least not I can see, except for the duvet and blanket, which comes in a really nice cover. It's this big red plush case. And also a copy of the menu, but I'll get into that in a bit.
If you're travelling for fun and infrequently, then you might feel a little bit sad about that. However, it's common practice on shorter to medium flights, with a few exceptions. Moving on to the safety video, and it's quite nice. The narrator even sounds a little bit familiar, and while it's a complete guess and a gamble, I'm wondering if it's Tony Planner who plays Ignacio Suarez in the TV series Ugly Betty. And if you were hoping for something bubbly before your flight, then the only option appears to be orange juice.
So there's a slight improvement on yesterday's flight where only water was offered. Today's is orange juice. It's very tasty though.
I just have to say, it's a tiny annoyance as a blogger, but those dimmable windows on the Boeing 787 can really test your patience, especially when the cabin crew turns them down to near total darkness, right after takeoff. Sure, it's an early flight and people want to sleep, but with a view this good out the window, I want to admire those fluffy cinematic clouds. In the end, I reluctantly cave and to dim my windows for the sake of everyone else's beauty sleep. Not that it matters because the crew can override it anyway. Okay, complaint over. Here's a copy of the menu which I managed to record just before we pushed back from the gate. I almost think that given the lack of options, it probably wasn't worth printing in the first place. But if yesterday's somewhat basic meal is anything to go by, then I'll probably be at the burger store quicker than the cabin crew can dim the windows again. Much like my flight tomorrow with American Airlines, I was able to pre-order one of the meal options through the Manage My Booking section. And while the selection wasn't exactly a Michelin star material, a portion of fruit and a bagel with cream cheese, smoked salmon and a single lonely spirally cucumber slice was enough to get me through the next 4 hours. It was delicious, I just could have done with a bit, well, more. Preferably enough not to still be eyeballing other people's trays. There also wasn't any kind of drinks menu, which instantly turned into ordering a fun little guessing game. I wasn't able to ask the cabin crew to recite every single type of beverage on board. It was like the world's driest poem, so I played it safe with an apple juice followed by a white wine of completely unknown origin, but pleasantly drinkable. I would then love to summarise and talk about the food on camera, but unfortunately I've just upgraded to a new microphone and I didn't realise that it wasn't connected, so instead it's off for a bathroom tour. Things are certainly improving, because this is a nice modern bathroom, although I'm trying not to do my usual chit chat about the blue LED lighting. There's even a dimmable window, which I do enjoy looking out, at least not when I'm sitting down, but still, and a nice bottle of liquid soap and a fake but beautiful plastic flower. Lots of little effort, I do appreciate. Before I recline into the flatbed mode and then definitely not sleep, it's worth taking a look at the in-flight entertainment on the very respectable 18-inch touchscreen display. The selection is surprisingly solid, and thanks to the US having such a cultural impact on Mexico, I was delighted to find episodes of The Office waiting for me. I'll let you browse the options yourself, or at the very least pick something to keep you entertained while I pretend I'm going to sleep. Film recommendations, I decided to give Mickey 17 a go, and honestly it should carry a warning if you're trying to eat at the same time. In short, he volunteers on a space expedition to another planet, where they're colonising the planet, but his job is sort of a bit cringe. It involves all the horrendous deaths and experiments that would only be allowed in a film, before being reprinted, hence the 17. That's what he gets to eventually, which is kind of where he gets stuck. It's sort of a feel-good film, but at least in the end, but give it a go. Time and lighting, well, lighting in particular, was not on my side, but I did manage to make a clip video just before landing of what the seat looks like in the flat mode, so just pretend I enjoyed that for the last 2 hours. My honest opinion, it's a very comfortable way to travel, and I loved the bedding.
I don't know if it's a limitation of the Super Diamond product or just what they requested, but the bit behind me is actually slightly angled. Anyway, it's time for landing and then the conclusion. I was hoping for a more interesting background for today's conclusion, but unfortunately I went to In-N-Out Burger, which is just awesome for watching planes and eating burgers, and it is so loud because of the engine thrust. Anyway, Aeromexico 787. Some good, some bad. The seat is great. The cabin crew really good. Plenty of entertainment on the screen as well. The headphones were a bit of a surprise because they're just so plush and I love the red. The food is the thing that lets them down. It felt more like a snack, to be honest, and I was left feeling hungry. I mean, the immigration queue was an hour and a half, which is not bad, I guess, for the USA. But I was so hungry I started snacking from things in my bag that I just happened to bring with me. So food could be better. Otherwise, a great experience. Lounge. Hope we'll come back and see the new lounge at some point. Otherwise, thank you and safe travels and muchas gracias for watching.